Good afternoon, friends. Let's read our Bible today, friends, in Second Chronicles, chapter 29. Hezekiah purifies the temple. Hezekiah was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 29 years. His mother's name was Abiha, daughter of Zechariah. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, just as his father David had done. In the first month of the first year of his reign, he opened the doors of the temple of the Lord and repaired it. He brought in the priests and the Levites, assembled them in the square on the east side, and said, "Listen to me, Levites. Consecrate yourselves now and consecrate the temple of the Lord, the God of your fathers. Remove all defilement from the sanctuary. Our fathers were unfaithful. They did evil in the eyes of the Lord our God and forsook him. They turned their faces away from the Lord, dwelling place, and turned their backs on him. They turned their faces away from the Lord, dwelling place, and turned their backs on him. They also shut the doors of the portico and pulled out the lamps. They did not burn incense or present any burnt offerings at the sanctuary to the God of Israel. Therefore the anger of the Lord has fallen on Judah and Jerusalem. He has made him an object of dread and horror and scorn. As you can see with your own eyes, this is why your fathers have fallen by the sword, and why our sons and daughters and our wives are in captivity. Now I intend to make a covenant with the Lord, the God of Israel, so that his first anger will turn away from us. My sons, do not be enlightened now, for the Lord has chosen you to stand before him and serve him, to minister before him and to burn incense." Then these Levites set to work from the Kohathites, Mahath son of Amasai and Joel son of Azariah. From the Merarites, Kish son of Abdi and Azariah son of Jehalalel. From the Gershonites, Joah son of Zima and Eden son of Joah. From the descendants of Elizaphan, Shemri and Jael. From the descendants of Asaph, Zechariah and Mathaniah. From the descendants of Heman, Jael and Shemi. From the descendants of Jeduthun, Shemaiah and Oziel. When they had assembled their brothers and consecrated themselves, they went in to purify the temple of the Lord, as the king had ordered, following the word of the Lord. The priests went into the sanctuary of the Lord to purify it. They brought out to the courtyard of the Lord's temple everything unclean, and they found it in the temple of the Lord. The Levites took it and carried it out to the Kidron Valley. They began the consecration on the first day of the first month, and to the 8th day of the month they reached the portico of the Lord. For 8 more days they consecrated the temple of the Lord itself, finishing on the 16th day of the first month. Then they went into to King Hezekiah and reported, "We have purified the entire temple of the Lord, the altar of the burnt offering with all its utensils, and the table for setting out the consecrated bread with all its articles. We have prepared and consecrated all the articles that King Ahaz removed in his unfaithfulness while he was king. They are now in front of the Lord's altar." Early the next morning, King Hezekiah gathered the city officials together and went up to the temple of the Lord. They brought 7 bulls, 7 rams, 7 male lambs, and 7 male goats as a sin offering for the kingdom. For the sanctuary and for Judah, the king commanded the priests, the descendants of Aaron, to offer this on the altar of the Lord. So they slaughtered the bulls, and the priests took the blood and sprinkled it on the altar. Next they slaughtered the rams and sprinkled their blood on the altar. Then they slaughtered the lambs and sprinkled their blood on the altar. The goats for the sin offerings they brought before the king and the assembly, and they laid their hands on them. The priests then slaughtered the goats and presented their blood on the altar for a sin offering to atone for all Israel, because the king had ordered the burnt offering and the sin offering for all Israel. He has stationed the Levites in the temple of the Lord with cymbals, harps, and lyres in the way prescribed by David and Gad the king's seer, and Nathan the prophet. This was commanded by the Lord through his prophets. So the Levites stood ready with David's instruments, and the priests with their trumpets. Hezekiah gave the order to sacrifice the burnt offerings on the altar. As the offering began, singing to the Lord began also, accompanied by trumpets and the instruments of King David of David, king of Israel. The whole assembly bowed in worship, while the singers sang and the trumpeters played. All this continued until the sacrifice of the burnt offering was completed. When the offerings were finished, the king and everyone present with him knelt down and worshipped. King Hezekiah and his officials ordered the Levites to praise the Lord with the words of David and of Asaph the seer. So they sang praises and in gladness and bowed their heads and worshipped. Then Hezekiah said, "You have now dedicated yourselves to the Lord. Come and bring sacrifices and thank offerings to the temple of the Lord." So the assembly brought sacrifices and thank offerings, and all whose hearts were willing brought burnt offerings. The number of burnt offerings the assembly brought was 70 bulls, 100 rams, and 200 male lambs, all of them for burnt offerings to the Lord. The animals consecrated as sacrifices amounted to 600 bulls and 3,000 sheep and goats. The priests, however, were too few to skin all the burnt offerings, so their kinsmen, the Levites, helped them until the task was finished, and until other priests had been consecrated. For the Levites had been more conscientious in consecrating themselves than the priests had been. There were burnt offerings in abundance, together with the fat of the fellowship offering, and the drink offerings that accompanied the burnt offerings. So the service of the temple of the Lord was reestablished. Hezekiah and all the people rejoiced in what God had brought about for his people, because it was done so quickly. So here guys, Hezekiah was the son of David, and he was king of Israel at the age of 25. And he was a successful king because he obeyed the Lord until the end of his kingship. Here he purifies the temple of the Lord by he repaired it and offered burnt and sin offerings, and all the people there, the priest and all his officials were they helped each other to rebuild the temple, and they took away all the unclean things that the old kings removed because of their disobedience to the Lord. So for us guys, we really need to follow the example of Hezekiah and all his people during the time by purifying the temple of the Lord. If you have churches, you belong to churches, help the churches to be holy and to really make it beautiful, and to really make offerings in different ways by giving your tithes or whatever help you can do for your church and for the people who belongs to your church. So, and also you need the men of Hezekiah sing and dance for the Lord, and they really pleased the Lord, and he became a successful king because he obeyed the Lord. For us, in order for us to become a successful Christian, we need to really obey the Lord until the day we die, and to really stay faithful to the Lord, and make sure that the house and the temple of the Lord is being respected by us, whatever churches you belong, and always obey what the Lord commanded to us, whatever religion we may be, as long as you're not worshiping the devil or any other fake and false gods. So enjoy your duty as a Christian to really be a good Christian, and also making your church and yourself pleasing in the eyes of the Lord. Thank you so much for reading with me the Bible. God bless you and good afternoon.